Prime-time local news, serving the Lakeland and Midwest regions.
Good evening and thank you for joining us. Pioneer Lodge and House put out a statement this morning on their Facebook page stating one person has tested positive for COVID-19 in their building. The document stated residents or staff who have had close contact were sent home for a mandatory 14-day isolation. That has limited their workforce, and they are asking all residents to stay in their own rooms for at least 14 days. They also mentioned residents will be monitored by health services. Pioneer Lodge is also encouraging people to make phone and video calls more frequently at this time. Well, China has lifted their lockdown in Wuhan, where the origin of the coronavirus was first detected. I had the chance to talk to one Canadian living in Wuhan to find out how things have changed since the lockdown was lifted. Joining me once again here on Primetime Local News is Mark Henshaw, living out in Wuhan, China, from London, Ontario. Mark, thanks for chatting with me again.
Hey, no problem. Thank you, Connor.
So last time we talked to you, you were in around day 60-ish of isolation. Now that the country has kind of lifted up the lockdown, what has it been like on a day-to-day basis now for you?
It's been, I've had a sense of freedom and a sense of peace. We have done different things, like I got a haircut. I went to see the lake finally and go for a walk there, and went to the river. It's been nice to be able to leave my apartment again.
Now, have things been going kind of back to normal within the community, or if things are there still being extra precautions being taken?
There's still lots of precautions being taken. So anytime you enter a place or exit a place, your temperature will always be checked. And the other thing is when you specifically enter places, what I have to do is I have to produce a certificate that is from my community stating that I'm healthy. So even I think the more strange thing for us is even the bus. If you go on the bus, you have to, like a guy will be standing in the doorway of the bus, and you have to show him your certificate, and he's going to take your temperature. So picture I haven't seen it yet, but picture a lineup of people. And he does that to every single person on a bus. So that's obviously slowing down the transit. And it's the same in the subway, but there isn't as much people out now as there was before. So I still think people are a little reluctant to go outside because I haven't seen nearly as much people.
Now, here in Canada, of course, there have been a lot of emphasis on social distancing and making sure those precautions. Is that kind of still how it's been going with down in Wuhan there?
The government has definitely sent out messages to the people saying please keep a distance from people, but I have to say it doesn't seem that the social distancing, I was on the subway yesterday and I was watching like a girl and a man who didn't know each other sitting right beside each other. So in some respects, I don't see as taken as seriously. But then I was at the grocery store the other day and I accidentally bumped into a lady, and she immediately had her friend spray her with disinfectant all over. So, but I think the social distancing overall is a little more laid back here.
Now, with the numbers kind of not as crazy as they were a couple of months ago, does that give you a little bit of peace of mind going out and about in the community?
Yeah, it does. But again, the reason why the numbers were lower because everybody was inside. So now that everyone's going out again, we'll see what happens. But I mean, I feel that without a vaccine, we're doing what we can to maintain safety precautions, which gives me that peace of mind. But again, I'm just honestly, in my mind, I have it that I will probably get the virus at some point, because once there's talk about schools returning on May the 5th. So once schools return and people get back on the subway and the subway is packed and I have to go to work on the subway, other than wearing gloves and wearing a mask, what more can I really do?
Now, obviously, your work is going to work, like you said, and you are a teacher, as we talked about last time. Is work now change? Is work kind of still the same? You're still teaching virtually as of right now?
Yes, I'm still teaching virtually right now. But there is talk that I'm going to physically go back to the school around May 5th, but I don't know if the students will start on May 5th. I think the students may start more like in June.
Does it make you feel better knowing that you can actually physically go back to your office and your classroom to do that kind of stuff?
Socially speaking, yeah, and like mentally speaking, yeah. Like I look forward to connecting with people again and seeing people. um, but again, at the same time, I'm not sure like what might happen with with us intermingling again. I'm assuming the cases of the coronavirus will go up again. So I hope the precautions that we take in the businesses continue to maintain a very low amount, or if ideally nothing of the virus, um, but we'll see what happens.
Well, Mark, I really appreciate your time chatting with me once again, and hopefully everything goes well for you down the road here. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
The City of Lloydminster is looking to change some bylaws, allowing for a better response to the COVID-19 pandemic if it continues, and Eric Bay has more on these proposed changes.
The City of Lloydminster is preparing for the worst when it comes to COVID-19, looking into extending the city's line of credit from $12.5 million to $25 million. This comes in response to the city's allowing property taxes to be paid later to ensure that there is enough money for projects that come up over the summer.
You have to have enough money to pay your bills. So from the perspective of the city, traditionally people, we receive tax money usually the end of June, early July, and that's where it would have been this year, would have been July 10th had we not moved the property, the dates further on in the meeting. So that the city budgets for money coming in and when money goes out. And as it was alluded to, construction season tends to be our higher expenditures. So what we're trying to do is ensure that there's going to be enough money in the bank accounts to pay the city bills for the 365 days that we're incurring. We're basically all right now, but we will have a potential to run into trouble in July, and that's why it was brought forward now to get ourselves in order for that. Should bills and projects come in due and be finished before people pay their taxes throughout, I hope from July 10th through till November 10th, that cushion will be there through our line of credit, just to ensure that we have enough money to pay all our bills.
The mayor stresses that this is a proactive measure put in place in case there is more money needed before property taxes can be collected.
And rather than run the risk of being at the maximum line of credit and still having some outstanding bills, it was felt by administration that was best to raise that amount. Again, I want to mention that we've never went into that line of credit, and we're hoping, again, based on how the community is able to respond with their tax money and utility bills, we may not have to, but we are preparing for the worst case scenario.
The City of Lloydminster is also proposing an amendment to the Emergency Management Bylaw, allowing RCMP and peace officers to uphold the law with respect to the COVID-19 pandemic on both sides of the border as the city follows the Saskatchewan Public Health Order.
Basically, what that gives the RCMP and peace officers of the city the ability to enforce the laws if they are basically broken and flaunted. So if someone is, the first course of action would be to help ensure that people understand what that you cannot meet in groups of larger than 10 and things like that, and social distancing from that perspective, that different people are meeting in closer than the 6 feet or 2 meter zone. And just help them understand that. But if someone is advised that today and then again advised it in 3 days, just because they may not have fully understood it, but continue to be doing this on a daily basis, it gives the law enforcement people the tools that they need to help move this forward from that perspective.
Both of these bylaws will be coming back to City Council at their next meeting. Eric Bay, Primetime Local News.
Stay with us, more Primetime Local News after the break.
Furniture set and design supplied by Furniture Gallery and Furniture House, downtown Lloydminster.
Welcome back. Our Abby St. John spoke with Inspector Lee Brockman with the Lloydminster RCMP about how COVID-19 has affected the RCMP.
Today I'm joined here with Lee Brockman, the inspector for the Lloydminster RCMP, and today we're going to be talking about just how the COVID-19 has affected the RCMP and how they have been ensuring people are practicing the guidelines that have been in place. So thank you so much for joining me today. Let's start out. How has the RCMP been affected by this pandemic so far?
So obviously we're living in unprecedented times right now, but what I can say is that the Lloydminster RCMP detachment is committed to providing a full spectrum of policing services to our community as well, recognizing that public safety is an essential part of our community and community safety in general. So we have taken some measures to ensure that our officers are equipped to respond to complaints that require the physical attendance of a police officer, and we also have ways to follow up with people where maybe their complaint doesn't require the physical attendance of a police officer, but does require some follow-up. We do have officers that are available to follow up via telephone or email or other appropriate electronic means. But for sure, if a complaint requires the urgent presence of a police officer or police officers, our dispatchers are continuing to dispatch police officers to those complaints, and we will attend as per normal. So we're continuing to provide all of our policing services. Some services may be provided in ways that are maybe a little bit different than they were prior to the COVID-19 pandemic. However, we are still able to continue our service delivery overall. And as for the front counter of our detachment, we remain open, although access to our building is restricted right now. We are able to process urgent criminal record checks and things of that nature if they're urgently required right now as well. So we are still operating our regular essential services, but tweaking our services where they can be to ensure physical distancing measures and to mitigate the risk to our members and the public as well.
And has it been difficult to ensure that everyone in Lloydminster is social distancing and making sure that they are following those guidelines set out?
Yeah, and so the various orders that are in effect, including the public health order, the Lloydminster RCMP detachment is working with our partners in the public health field as well to ensure that people are abiding by the conditions specified in the order, and with obviously education and awareness being our number one priority at this point in time, followed by enforcement action only if it's required. But we are working with public health with respect to that as well.
And how has the RCMP kind of been making sure that people are following those guidelines? I know there has been extreme cases all over the world of people, having to be detained, arrested, stuff like that. I don't think it would be so extreme here, but how has the RCMP kind of been making sure that people aren't, forming groups of mass people or gatherings like that?
So what we've seen is that by and large, people in the community are taking the public health order and associated measures seriously, and we trust that they will continue to do so moving forward as well. So to date, there hasn't. We are primarily working on education and awareness over enforcement at this point in time, with enforcement as a tool in our tool belt if need be, but certainly focusing on the need to, we're living in times right now where this is new to a lot of folks, right? So just making sure that they're aware of the conditions of the public health order and that they are abiding by that first and foremost.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. You gave some great information, and it's nice to hear that people here in Lloydminster are following those guidelines and taking this pandemic seriously. So thank you so much for joining me today.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Well, it's National Volunteer Week, and it's a time to applaud and celebrate the dedication of volunteers in our community. Our Jace Mackey chatted with the Manager of Social Programs and Services with the City of Lloydminster to learn more about the importance of volunteerism in the border city.
So I'm joined by Patrick Lancaster. He's from the City of Lloydminster. Patrick, we're going to talk a little bit about Volunteer Week, but first, just tell me a little bit about the work you do with the city.
Our department, Social Programs and Services, works with different nonprofits throughout the city. A lot of our role is administering grant funding through Family and Community Support Services, Saskatchewan Lotteries, and the Tobacco Reduction Grant. But we also do different partnership initiatives, things like the Block Party Program, Youth Graffiti Cleanup, and different things that rely on the efforts of the different nonprofits, different volunteers in the community, and different ways to help improve the lives of residents.
And it's National Volunteer Week, and obviously kind of right now we're in a unique situation where there might not be as many volunteer opportunities, but are there any during this COVID-19 pandemic opportunities for people to volunteer in Lloydminster?
Yes, we have seen some changes. Different organizations, in some cases, have had to reduce the use of their volunteers as a safety measure or to protect their volunteers. But there are still definitely opportunities for volunteers to help out in our community. Different organizations such as Big Brothers Big Sisters and the Lloydminster Men's Shelter and Drop-In Shelter are still actively recruiting volunteers. And there's lots of informal opportunities for volunteers to help out through these different Facebook groups in our community, as well as simple acts such as, say, sweeping your neighbor's driveway, or as the snow starts to thaw away, get into taking care of lawns, raking up grass. If you're doing your lawn, you can help out and do your neighbor's lawn. So volunteering can be a lot of different things, and we can help out our community in a lot of different ways.
And I know that in this, especially in a community like Lloydminster, a lot of people like to contribute to their community and stuff. And what does volunteerism do to help build the community?
Volunteerism is really the core of the community, and Lloydminster residents have always been great about helping out and supporting the community, whether it is through the community organizations or just helping out their neighbors. Really, volunteerism is one of those ways that we can really feel connected with each other, and it's a great way to have purpose and add some meaning to our lives.
And why is it important to have a week that we kind of celebrate volunteerism and promote volunteerism here in the city of Lloydminster?
Well, the nice thing about Volunteer Week is it's a time to just take a bit of a pause and remember all the wonderful things that volunteers do. Volunteer appreciation really is something that should and can and does take place all throughout the year. But taking a moment and slowing down for a second and saying, hey, thank you to the people that make our community wonderful. Thank you to the people that give their time, their skills, and their care to so many different elements of our community. I can't stress the importance of that enough.
And when it comes to volunteers here in Lloydminster, I know that a lot of them, there's people that are involved in many different things. What have you been hearing from organizations when it comes to the amount of people who are coming forward for help with volunteers? Like, are they needing more people?
There is always a demand for volunteers in our community. That is something that never changes. There is always opportunities to help out and always things to do. I did mention a couple of examples of groups that are definitely actively looking for some volunteers. Again, Big Brothers Big Sisters, the Lloydminster Men's Shelter. You can find some opportunities on the city website at lloydminster.ca/volunteers. There are some organizations that may again have slowed down their volunteer recruitment, but again, there's many more that are still actively collecting names and connecting with volunteers.
Perfect. Thank you so much for taking some time to talk with us today.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Our Evan Kenny chatted with Lloydminster Bobcat AAA player Madsen Leslie, who was drafted today in the WHL.
Joining me today is one of the newest members of the Vancouver Giants, Madsen Leslie, drafted 10th overall earlier today. Madsen, how's it going?
Really good.
Thanks for joining me. Obviously, this has to be an exciting time for yourself. What emotions are going through your head right now?
Just really excited.
And I mean, obviously, so you saw your oldest brother go through this process a number of years ago now. How did you sort of take from his experience and maybe learn from that for yourself?
I
think it's just good because it taught me about like the WHL scholarship program and all that stuff.
And really showed you the different angles you can take with that. And your brother Jansen obviously took advantage of that as he played at Red Deer College after his WHL career. Now, Mazin, what was the scouting process like? Had you talked to scouts beforehand? Specifically, had you talked to Vancouver beforehand?
Yeah, I talked to a lot of teams, but then Vancouver FaceTimed me yesterday. So, yeah.
And was that sort of when you knew when you were going, or was that still things were up in the air?
I think things was still up in the air. I didn't really know for sure.
And fair enough. I mean, that's the way all these drafts typically work, right? Sort of last minute decisions. For yourself now, joining this Giants organization after their run last year where they made it to the finals, Game 7 overtime loss, what's it like just knowing you're going to be joining an organization that already has a great foundation?
I think it's good because you won't have to go through a rebuild or as big as a rebuild.
For sure, and as a young D-man, are you excited to, be able to step in with a team who's already going full force?
Yeah, I think it'll be good. Playing a little bit lower of a role in the first couple of years, just getting used to the WHL.
Now, yourself, you're described as a physical player. That's one of your main attributes, especially for, those top group of guys that have been drafted thus far. What do you think about your play style, and what are you hoping to carry over to the WHL?
Well, I'm an offensive defenseman that's physical, that can penalty kill and shut down defense whenever you need.
And
so that's just what I want to carry on to the WHL.
Yeah, hoping to bring all those elements. Is there anything else that you're hoping to develop even more, maybe in the next season or so before you get there?
Yeah, probably just getting a little bit more offensive and finishing on my chances.
For sure. No, that's a great one, Mazden. And then finally, is there anything else you'd like to add? Maybe. I guess just about the experience in general.
It was pretty exciting. Just woke up and just waiting for my name to be called was great.
Well, that's awesome, Mazden. Thank you for taking the time with us, and best of luck in this off season and heading into your next hockey season.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us on this edition of Primetime Local News Late Edition. Have a good rest of your night.